From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aylia Batool. Anti-Palestine billionaire donor Miriam Edelson has publicly urged President Donald Trump to seek a third term in office. This and more on today's show, so stay tuned. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson says there will be no vote to extend Enhanced Affordable Care Act or ACA tax credits. They are set to expire at the end of the month. The decision means millions of Americans could face sharp health insurance premium hikes in 2026. Johnson told reporters that some Republicans from swing districts pushed for a vote. He said talks continued through the weekend but failed to reach an agreement. The move has triggered backlash within his own party. New York Republican Mike Lawler called blocking the vote political malpractice. Approximately 22 million Americans currently receive the subsidies, which were introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic. Health policy group KFF warns that premiums could rise by an average of 114%, or more than $1,000 a year per person. KFF says 1 in 4 enrollees would likely drop coverage if premiums double. Democrats accuse Republicans of choosing inaction. They say families now face higher costs, uncertainty, and possible loss of coverage. Efforts to force a vote before the holiday recess appear unlikely to succeed. Doubts are growing about the future of Social Security in the United States, according to a recent poll by the Cato Institute. Even as it remains one of the country's most popular programs, with more than 8 in 10 Americans viewing it favorably, nearly a third say they do not expect the program to survive until they retire. A generational divide is emerging, as most people over 65 want current benefits protected, even if it means higher taxes on younger workers. However, Americans under the age of 30 say younger workers should be protected from higher taxes, even if benefits for retirees are reduced. Experts warn that by 2033, the Social Security Trust Fund for retirees is projected to run dry. At that point, benefits would be paid only from incoming payroll taxes, leading to an automatic cut of about 23%. The strain on Social Security has worsened as Americans live longer and there are fewer workers. Today, 3 workers support 1 retiree, while in the 1950s, 16 workers did. 7 in 10 Americans say they support the establishment of a nonpartisan commission to fix the program before the clock runs out. The U.S. has transferred 22 Cuban migrants to Guantanamo Bay for deportation, despite a federal judge's ruling questioning the move. The New York Times reports that the men arrived on Sunday on an Immigration and Customs Enforcement or ICE charter flight from Louisiana. They are believed to be the first Cuban nationals sent to Guantanamo Bay since January. U.S. officials say approximately 730 migrants are currently being held at the base. Most are from Latin American countries, including El Salvador, Guatemala, and Venezuela. 5 of the newly arrived Cubans were labeled high-threat illegal aliens. The remaining men are being housed in dormitory-style facilities used for Caribbean migrants. Guantanamo is widely known for its military prison, where detainees have been held for years following the September 11th attacks. Humanitarian and legal advocacy groups have long said the U.S. government's policy towards prisoners at Guantanamo are unconstitutional and violate international human rights law. Several landmark U.S. Supreme Court decisions have found that detainees at Guantanamo had rights to due process and habeas corpus, but were still subject to military tribunal. President Donald Trump announced earlier this year that Guantanamo would be used to detain undocumented migrants. Last week, a federal judge in Washington ruled the administration exceeded its authority. Civil rights groups, including the ACLU, have warned of possible human rights violations and are demanding immediate legal access and transparency. President Donald Trump has ordered a sweeping blockade targeting Venezuela's oil trade. His actions are sharply escalating tensions with the government of President Nicolas Maduro. After the announcement, Trump said the United States would enforce a total and complete blockade of all sanctions oiled tankers entering or leaving Venezuela. Posting on Truth Social, he labeled the Maduro government a foreign terrorist organization. Trump claimed that Venezuela is now surrounded by what he called the largest armada ever assembled in South America. He said the blockade will remain until Venezuela returns oil, land, and other assets. Trump accused the Maduro government of using oil revenues to fund drug trafficking, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. He also said Venezuelan nationals previously sent to the United States are being returned at a rapid pace. The move comes as Washington increases pressure on Maduro to step down from power. U.S. officials say 22 strikes have been carried out on alleged narco-terrorist vessels since September. Venezuela has accused the United States of maritime piracy after oil seizures in international waters. It says Washington is using anti-drug claims to justify aggression and target its oil reserves. The BBC says it will fight a $10 billion lawsuit filed by President Donald Trump over an edited clip in one of its documentaries. Trump filed the complaint in Florida on Monday. He is seeking $5 billion for defamation and another $5 billion for alleged violations of a trade practices law. A BBC spokesperson said the broadcaster will defend the case. The BBC has declined further comment, citing ongoing legal proceedings. The dispute centers on a panorama program aired a week before the 2024 U.S. presidential election. A leaked internal memo reported by The Telegraph said the program edited together two separate parts of Trump's January 6, 2021 speech. In the original remarks, Trump told supporters they would walk to the Capitol and cheer for lawmakers. In the documentary edit, he appeared to urge the crowd to fight. The two excerpts were more than 50 minutes apart. Last month, the BBC apologized for the edit. It rejected demands for compensation and denied defamation. BBC Director General Tim Davie and News Chief Deborah Turnus resigned amid the controversy. The White House has dismissed the BBC as biased and fake news. A new statue in Emancipation Hall in the U.S. Capitol honors teenage civil rights pioneer Barbara Rose Johns. It replaces one of the Confederate generals, Robert E. Lee, which was removed from the Capitol 5 years ago. The bronze bust was created by sculptor Stephen Widsman. Democratic Virginia Senator Tim Kaine said John's story will inspire generations of young visitors. Johns was 16 years old in 1951 when she led a brave walkout at her segregated high school in Farmville, Virginia, demanding equal education. This was to protest overcrowded classrooms, crumbling buildings, and poor facilities that stood in sharp contrast to nearby white schools. More than 400 students joined the protest. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, took up the case, which became part of the landmark Supreme Court ruling in 1954, known as Brown v. Board of Education. It declared racial segregations in public schools unconstitutional. The Hind Rajab Foundation has filed a criminal complaint in Italy against an Israeli soldier accused of war crimes in Gaza. Details coming up after the break. Welcome back. Anti-Palestine billionaire donor Miriam Edelson has publicly urged President Donald Trump to seek a third term in office. Speaking at a Hanukkah reception at the White House, Trump said Edelson encouraged him to explore legal options for another 4 years. She also offered additional $250 million for the Trump campaign. Open Secrets reports that Edelson gave $106 million to a pro-Trump election group in 2024. Edelson later confirmed that she discussed the idea with anti-Palestine attorney Alan Dershowitz. She said Dershowitz outlined possible legal arguments for another term, despite the 22nd Amendment limiting presidents to 2 terms. Trump also praised Edelson's late husband, Sheldon Adelson, for regularly advising him on Israeli issues. Miriam Edelson is president of the Maccabee Task Force, or MTF. The group opposes the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement for Palestinian human rights on college campuses. MTF also aims to instill pro-Israel beliefs amongst young people. Through MTF, Edelson was instrumental in leading a campaign on college campuses, attacking pro-Palestine student activists, including Columbia University's Mahmoud Khalil, earlier this year. Civil defense crews in Gaza City have recovered the bodies of 30 members of a single Palestinian family from the ruins of their home. The victims belonged to the Salim family. They were killed in an Israeli airstrike on December 19, 2023, according to Gaza's civil defense. The Salim home was the first site searched under a new organized campaign to locate thousands of Palestinians still believed to be buried under rubble across Gaza. The strike hit the family house in the Al Rimal neighborhood of western Gaza City. Rescuers say as many as 60 relatives may have died in the attack. The recovery was carried out on Tuesday, more than a year later, after access to the area became possible. Civil defense teams say the work is slow and dangerous. They are using very limited equipment, including a single excavator. Search operations will continue in other destroyed areas. The Hind Rajab Foundation has filed a criminal complaint in Italy against an Israeli soldier accused of war crimes in Gaza. In a statement on Monday, the foundation said it submitted the case to the Italian public prosecutor after confirming the soldier is currently in Italy. The complaint names Israel Yitzki, identified as a member of the Israeli army. The group says Italy is legally obliged to investigate and prosecute suspects of serious international crimes found on its territory under international and Italian law. According to the foundation, Yitzki served in the 432nd Battalion of the Givati Brigade. Investigators allege that he took part in operations involving widespread destruction of civilian property with no military necessity in Gaza. He is also accused of attacks on residential buildings and other civilian sites. The complaint further alleges unlawful detention and degrading treatment of Palestinian civilians, including images of detainees blindfolded, handcuffed, and kneeling. The foundation says the acts amount to war crimes under Article 8 of the Rome Statute, the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court. South Africa is considering changes to its 3-decade-old rules about Black ownership in the country. That could open the door for South African-born billionaire Elon Musk's Starlink and other satellite internet firms to operate there. Telecoms Minister Soli Malatsi has asked the industry regulator to allow equity-equivalent investments which would count towards empowerment goals instead of the current 30% Black ownership requirement. That rule was introduced to address the inequality that had plagued South Africa during its years of apartheid rule. Musk, who was born in South Africa's administrative capital, Pretoria, has refused to give up equity, claiming the Black ownership law is discriminatory. Reports say the government will possibly accept alternatives to the rule, such as investments in digital infrastructure. Some observers claim the Black ownership rule has benefited a small elite rather than driving broad-based change. A recent study also found that many South Africans want the policy scrapped. Supporters of the change argue that easing the rules could attract new investment and expand internet access in the country. However, opponents warn it could deepen political rifts, with a parliamentary committee urging that the directive be withdrawn. South Africa's leading political party, the African National Congress, has also raised concerns, which analysts say sets the stage for renewed tension within the coalition government. Israel has continued killing Palestinians and wounding them, violating the U.S.-brokered ceasefire in Gaza, which came into effect on October 10th. Israeli soldiers killed at least one Palestinian and wounded 9 others in an airstrike in central Gaza, outside an Israeli military deployment area this week. 9 more Palestinians were injured when an Israeli drone struck the center of Gaza City. Additional shelling injured several people there, as well as the southeastern Khan Yunis and near the Israeli-designated Barak corridor north of Rafah. The crisis is being compounded by extreme winter weather. UN refugee agency UNRWA warns that children in Gaza face no respite as Storm Byron deepens the humanitarian emergency. Al Jazeera reports that 17 Palestinians, including 4 children, have died after buildings collapsed due to severe cold. Rescue teams saved 6 people after a war-damaged family home collapsed in Gaza City's Shati refugee camp during strong winds and heavy rain. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza reports that a 2-week-old Palestinian infant froze to death amid the worsening conditions. Meanwhile, Israel released 12 Palestinians from prison. The Palestinian Prisoner Media Office says they were received by the International Committee of the Red Cross at the Kerem Abu Salam crossing. Israel's genocide in Gaza has killed at least 70,668 Palestinians and wounded 171,152 since October 2023. A man who filmed sites linked to the Chinese government's abuses against Uyghur Muslims now faces possible deportation from the United States. Chinese national Guan Hang documented locations identified by investigators as detention camps in China's occupied East Turkestan, called Xinjiang by China's government. Hang left China and later entered the United States after posting the footage online. On Monday, he appeared before an immigration judge in New York after being held by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, since August. The hearing ended with a new date set for January. Hang's lawyer says he is seeking asylum. A judge may consider sending him to Uganda to pursue his asylum claim. However, his lawyer says that risks his eventual return to China, where Hang's mother says she fears severe consequences if he is deported. She says shortly after Hang published his video, family members in mainland China were interrogated by government authorities about their ties to him. A U.S. Congressional Human Rights panel has also warned that he would likely face persecution if sent back. Hang remains in ICE detention in upstate New York. Pakistan has rejected India's claim at the United Nations on Tuesday that Jammu and Kashmir is an internal matter concerning India. The statement came after the Indian representative told a UN forum in New York that Kashmir is an integral part of India. Pakistan's UN consul Gulkesar Sarwani objected, saying Jammu and Kashmir remains an internationally recognized disputed territory which has never been and will never be part of India. He accused the Indian government of failing to fulfill its commitment to grant Kashmiris the right to self-determination. Sarwani also warns that the unresolved Kashmir dispute continues to threaten peace and stability in South Asia. As well, the diplomat accused India of sponsoring cross-border terrorism, alleging India's involvement in supporting banned militant groups and in targeting killings beyond the region. On the Indus Waters Treaty, a water-sharing agreement between India and Pakistan, which India suspended in April, Sarwani said India was distorting facts. He emphasized that the treaty does not allow unilateral suspension or amendment. Pakistan has urged the international community to hold India accountable and to ensure that it upholds international law. Scientists at Washington State University say artificial intelligence has helped them stop herpes virus from entering human cells by targeting a single critical protein interaction. The research team used machine learning and molecular simulations to identify a specific amino acid in the virus's fusion protein that is essential for infection. This protein enables the virus to attach to and merge with human cells. Lead researcher Jin Lu said viruses rely on many interactions, but only a few are vital. The team focused on finding that weak point, building an algorithm to stimulate thousands of amino acids interaction. Machine learning was then used to rank which interactions mattered most. Once the key amino acid was identified, lab experiments confirmed the findings. Tests shows that changing this single component completely blocked the virus from entering cells. Researchers say the approach could speed up antiviral drug development. Instead of years of trial and error, AI narrowed the search quickly. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content. You can also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.